manifest it.
It's magic and you're magic.
When I say we, you say work. We work. We work. We
What's up, guys? Namo Himalaya. Stephan from Shared Reality here. I'm a communications scholar, media literacy advocate, and law of attraction practitioner. And today we're going to talk about how manifestation and New Age philosophy is portrayed in the media, specifically in Apple TV's WeCrashed series. Now, if you're not familiar with WeCrashed, it is about the rise and fall of WeWork, along with the rise and fall of WeWork's founder and his wife, Adam and Rebecca Neumann. Now, they are played by Jared Leto and Anne Hathaway, respectively. So for those unfamiliar with the story of WeWork, it is a true story. WeWork is basically like a subleasing office co-working space. They would rent out big offices, subdivide them into smaller offices and work areas, and rent those out to individual freelancers and people that work from home that for some reason wanted to be in an office. It was really big in the 2010s, pre-pandemic. And the story starts off, Adam Neumann is an immigrant guy trying to hustle, trying to make his businesses work in New York City, and he tries to sell baby clothes, he tries to sell collapsible heels. He really is just a gung-ho salesman for anything that he thinks he can sell. And it's not until he meets his wife Rebecca that she really teaches him to have intentionality. And she sees that he's kind of full of shit. And he even himself says, both in the series and pulled from real life, is that when she first saw him, she said he was full of shit, and that she taught him to have intentionality and how to manifest things for himself and how to make things happen. And that's really charted over the series, because as happens in real life, he ends up with a valuation of $47 billion for his business that has never made money, never turned a profit. Like, their output exceeded or equaled their revenue. And so throughout the series, his eccentricities are kind of seen by investors and by other people as like, well, this is what makes a unicorn, a company that's been valuated at over $1 billion. This is a time after Amazon, after Uber, when all these huge tech companies have blown up and people found their unicorns and made tons of money off them. So everyone is so searching for that next thing that they're willing to give and give. So it was a very interesting experience for me watching the series, because I'm in a lot of spaces that do merge business and spirituality. So a lot of the language the characters use that was supposed to be laughable, that was supposed to make us see how insane and cuckoo they were, how woo-woo they were, how unlike anywhere else to work this was, and not in a good way, that it was actually just a facade. A lot of that didn't strike me in the way that it was really supposed to, I feel, because for me, he still manifested exactly what he set out to. They're just constantly gassing each other up. The main couple just constantly feeding off one another, vibing off one another, trying to get each other to grow faster and grow bigger. And that was like WeWork's problem, basically, is uncontrolled growth and unjustified growth for growth's sake. But in encouraging each other to dream bigger and to not have any touch with reality,
You have to make them see.
See what?
You're a supernova.
they did actually achieve what they set out to manifest. There's one scene in it where Adam is writing down a number of what he's gonna ask this big investor for, what he's gonna ask him to throw in. And then they were like, no, add another zero, get crazy. And the one founder who's with them that is not into the woo very much at all is like, you guys are insane. And he's like, how are we gonna get $4.5 million? He's like, no, you're reading it wrong, you're missing some zeros, we're gonna get 45 billion. And they end up with a valuation of the company of 47 billion. And the thing is, their IPO might not have been successful, and they might have been their own downfall. The woo might have been part of their downfall, because they took the S1, which is this document. It's kind of like a white paper for investors, except it's filed through the SEC. It's for when you're taking a company public, and it really outlines all the costs of the company, all the financials, all the boring stuff you need to know before deciding whether or not to put your money in there. And so they start off this S1, this financial document, with like a dedication, which is unheard of first off, and it's like, we dedicate this to the energy of we, greater than any of us, but inside all of us. And they state in it as well their commitment, and this was one thing that always was reiterated throughout the show, like, our business is to elevate the world's consciousness.
WeWork's role is to elevate the world's consciousness.
They were just like a co-working, shared co-working space that you could lease a desk at, right? They're not changing the world. They were hardly a technology company to be evaluated at that they were, let alone be this spiritual hub.
We lease office space, then we act like we're changing the world.
But it kind of became a cult for people that were involved. Employees were trading their time, okay, I'll take a pay cut here and I will do all this extra work and stay till 3 a.m. just to get equity in the company, equity that they never got a payout for. And then he's, has his fall from grace, and he's pointed to it as like, this is what happens when you're out of touch with reality, like this is the craziness they thought, and everything about manifesting and New Age spirituality, and they brought in a lot of elements of Kabbalah. All that was kind of cast aside, which maybe didn't have a place in the business to begin with, but certainly looked down upon in the show, like, look at what these crazy people believe. But me watching it, who knows that the law of attraction is real and who's experienced it, and knows manifestation is the only way we develop anything in our life, I'm like, for me, I'm like, it worked.
Wife, she works there.
She helps him manifest things.
He got the valuation he wanted, and not only that, but he, even though the IPO failed and all those employees never got their equity, he still managed to cash out $700 million of his fund. I believe he was bought out at $1 billion. Google search today put his net worth at like $2.2 billion, according to Bloomberg. So he certainly made out exactly as he intended, manifesting that life for himself, his wife, and his family. So what it called to mind for me was how hypocritical they were in saying they were cultivating this place of we, this place of oneness. Rebecca Neumann was saying on the show in one of the summer camp episodes that, I'm just another you up here. Even though there was such a pay disparity, there's such a wealth gap. And you might say, well, that was their karma to buy into it, and they chose to do it for the low wages, and these people are just making money. But I think when you're manifesting at that level, and your manifestation involves all those people, thousands of people, even if it was just smaller than that, just hundreds of people, just 20 people, you have a responsibility when you're manifesting that involves all those people, I think, to co-create with them. Because they were talking about creating this energy of we, creating this love, this community, and then they weren't spreading the wealth equitably, based on workload, based on contribution. They weren't fostering a safe environment. There were a lot of reports of sexism and just bad behavior being encouraged and people getting drunk all the time. I'm like, how are you gonna, like, I know millennials and like kegs on tap was like the big thing in the office, especially in the 2010s. I know I worked at a bunch of little startups, so we're like, oh, we have snacks and we have beer, and isn't that so much greater than actual benefits? Like, not really. But I'm like, how are you gonna raise the world? And this is probably a little judgy on my part, because I no longer drink, but I'm like, how are you gonna raise the world's consciousness when you are not even staying sober, like staying conscious in this realm? It's just, so the hypocrisy is what really got to me. So I think when you're manifesting at that level, the lesson I took away from it is when you're manifesting at that level, you need to include everyone. You need to co-create with the people you're manifesting with and that you're manifesting for. And you need to be specific and intentional about where you place that. Because throughout the show, his focus is just on growth, on growth, on growth. And that is what makes their expenses, exceed the revenue by so much, and really what makes him just live on borrowed money.
You were supposed to be getting us funding, but now you're telling us to spend more?
Miguel, we spend to grow. We spend to grow.
But he was so focused on growth and on his image and being led by ego and manifesting a certain level of life for his family, where he felt like a celebrity, where they had tons of money at their disposal, where his wife wanted to teach at a school, so he built her a school, where she wanted to be an actress, so he built her a theater. Like that level of wealth, which there's nothing wrong with possessing that, but can you get there ethically? Because at the end of the day, he was not providing the type of work environment he claimed to be providing for these people, and the equity they were promised and all the stuff they worked for and sacrificed for, they didn't end up getting. And then he stepped away with tons of money. Many of the investors made a bunch of money off the scraps too. And then real working people, thousands of them across the globe, were kind of left with the short end of the stick and just shit out of luck. And I just think with the level of excitement around this company and how much people were willing to give up to be a part of it and how much they wanted to be a part of it, they could have built something really cool. If he had instead focused his manifestations on manifesting a great, successful business, on fostering an environment that was actually fun and welcoming, and that was actually spiritually conscious. And so we need to be really intentional about what we're manifesting, make sure we're not just manifesting, the best life for us, but manifesting to be of service to the universe, to be of the greater good for everyone. Of course, take care of yourself. Of course, get your needs met. Of course, get whatever the fuck you want. But at the same time, we do have a responsibility, I think, to our fellow man, like to our friends and our neighbors and our loved ones and our co-workers and our employees. You know, Adam Neumann was able to raise so much money. He doubled his investments from people each year just because he was such a good salesman, because he was so good at selling this vision and so good at selling this hype. But it was all just kind of a smokescreen for this artificial expansion. You know, so I think we need to be very wary of charismatic leaders. I think a lot of New Age language gets co-opted by people that maybe don't have the best intentions for the people they're leading, and maybe don't have the greatest understanding of spirituality that they're putting on. Like, if you're still doing these petty things, still being led by ego, still drinking a ton, I don't really see how you're gonna elevate your own consciousness, let alone the world's. But I did still enjoy the show, and it was still super. I've seen the WeWork documentary on Hulu, the Generation Hustle episode about it, and the show now. So I think it did a pretty good job of representing what they say went down. People do think they over-romanticize the lead characters. Maybe that's just because Anne Hathaway and Jared Leto are likable. But for me, it was just an example of how manifestation can really work when you remove your limiting beliefs. Because seeing him go from, a failed baby clothes salesman, literally business door-to-door baby clothes salesman, to a billionaire, just like that, simply for changing his frame of reference and believing in himself and getting people to buy into that vision. And as knowledge manifestation and law of attraction and people's spiritual awakening, people are becoming more conscious, I feel like we are going to see these themes crop up more and more. Obviously, this one was based on real life, so this was just the lives these people were living. But I've seen in tons of shows, reality and scripted alike, just people using these themes more and more in this language more casually. I still don't think it's taken very seriously. Certainly not treated with the same reverence as mainstream religions. New Age spirituality always seems to be the butt of the joke, but that's people's prerogative, and they're lost for missing out on conscious manifestations. But the lessons I took from WeCrashed are: be very, very specific of what you're manifesting, and when you're manifesting it, make sure you have your eyes on the whole picture, and that you're not just thinking for yourself from a place of greed, but that you're actually coming from a place of service. But other than that, you should run wild and let your imagination and dreams and limitlessness grow as big as Adam Neumann's ego in WeCrashed. So let me know if you watch the show. Let me know if there are any other shows that have New Age themes, talk about manifestation that you want me to check out, that you want me to review. You have any thoughts, anything I didn't touch on, be sure to leave it in the comments below. You can also let me know where you're tuned in from. It's always nice to hear. So guys, I hope you got some benefit out of this video, at least some entertainment. I know I was kind of rambling, but I just finished the show last week and had so many thoughts about the way they portrayed things that are like everyday to me and probably to you if you're watching this video. So I very much appreciate you checking it out. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that little notification button too, because I'm committed to bringing you 3 new videos a week so we can all continue learning, growing, and not only survive, but thrive in 2022 and beyond. Thank you. Love you.